Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. The small, weather-beaten village of Graymore lay cradled against the foothills of rugged mountains. Narrow cobblestone streets wound between ivy-laden cottages, and the quiet murmur of everyday life was interlaced with ancient stories passed down through the generations. At the village's heart, overlooking a meandering stream that sparkled in the early light, stood the windmill of Whispering Time. Locals regarded the windmill with a mixture of reverence and curiosity, for its presence was inseparable from the fabric of Graymore's collective memory. Elders spoke of the windmill as a living repository of the past, a place where the voices of old had once been so vivid that their laughter, their laments, and their secrets still lingered on the breeze. Young children would press their ears against the rough-hewn walls, listening intently during twilight as if the windmill might reveal a secret meant only for them. And on quiet days, the townsfolk would gather beneath its towering silhouette and share tales of forgotten epochs, convinced that the windmill held within its creaks the soul of Graymore itself. Long before Graymore became a haven of nostalgia, the valley was the domain of a proud civilization known as the Marconians, people renowned for their artistry and boundless passion for storytelling. According to legend, the windmill was built over 4 centuries ago by a visionary architect named Cassian Marcon. Wrought from local stone and timber, the windmill was not constructed merely as a tool for labor, but as a monument to memory. Cassian, whose own life had been touched by both joy and unspeakable sorrow, imbued the structure with an arcane blessing. It was said that he carved runes and etched poetic verses into the beams and mortar, binding the windmill to the spirit of the land so that it might one day preserve the stories of the past. Over time, as the Marconians faded from memory and new generations took root in Graymore, the windmill's original purpose became obscured by the mists of time. Yet its magic endured. Those who studied the faded inscriptions in the windmill's base discovered fragments of ancient poetry, passages hinting at a pact between man and nature, a covenant that promised that even as human lives turned to dust, their voices would echo in every gust of wind. Thus the structure earned its title, the Windmill of Whispering Time, a silent sentinel that channeled the melancholy beauty of what was long gone. Among the villagers, there emerged one whose heart beat with a relentless need to understand the secrets of the windmill. A young woman named Eliana Gray, with eyes like storm-tossed sea and a spirit as restless as the wind itself. Eliana had grown up listening to her grandmother recount legends of the Marconians with wistful longing and quiet terror. Inspired by these tales, she devoted her youth to unearthing every scrap of history about Graymore, poring over brittle manuscripts in the town's archive, and exploring the landscape with an artist's sensitivity. It was on one crisp autumn evening, when the twilight melted into a silvery dusk, that Eliana first felt the pull of the windmill. She walked along a narrow leaf-strewn path that led to the clearing where the ancient structure stood. As she approached, a gentle breeze picked up, carrying with it indistinct whispers, as if spoken in a long-forgotten tongue. With each step, the soft murmurs grew louder, resonating with the beat of her own heart. Eliana's senses were enveloped by the sound, a subtle symphony of voices that seemed to rise from the wind, the grass, and the very stones of the windmill itself. She stopped to listen, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she could make out words, snatches of old songs and tales of heroism and heartbreak, sung in a language of the soul. This mysterious call of the past stirred something deep within her, setting her on a quest to learn why the windmill sang and what secrets lay in its timeless whispers. Driven by the desire to decode the cryptic messages of the windmill, Eliana began systematically recording the voices that filled the fading light. Every evening, with a small tape recorder and a well-worn journal in hand, she would sit beneath the windmill's shadow and let the breeze carry its ancient message into her heart. On some nights, the whispers were soft and soothing, evoking images of laughter, joy, and the tender bonds of family and friendship. On other nights, they were heavy with sorrow, a dirge of lost hope, regret, and the inevitable passage of time. Eliana soon noticed peculiar patterns in the murmurs. Certain words, repeated like a refrain, seemed to hint at forgotten events, tragedies that had befallen the Marconian people, heroic tales of sacrifice, and romantic sagas that ended in bittersweet loss. She discovered that the windmill's inscriptions matched some of these recurring phrases, as if the very carvings on its ancient stone were channeling the voices of the past. One such inscription, worn yet discernible on a stone near the base, read, "In the whisper of the wind, memories endure. In every gust, a song of what once was." With every note captured, Eliana painstakingly transcribed the fragments, slowly constructing a mosaic of voices from another time. As word of Eliana's endeavors spread quietly through Greymore, other kindred spirits emerged, people who, like her, had felt the haunting call of the windmill. There was Silas, a reclusive musician whose compositions echoed the melancholy of the old world. Marigold, an elderly storyteller whose eyes twinkled with the secrets of her youth. And even young Tobias, a spirited lad who claimed that, on clear nights, he could hear the windmill's song blending with the laughter of the Marconian children. Together, they formed a small circle, a modern fellowship dedicated to preserving and interpreting the legacy of the windmill of Whispering Time. These gatherings were held on the very nights when the sun dipped low and the shadows lengthened, creating a unique ritual of remembrance. Around a crackling bonfire in the field beside the windmill, they shared personal stories, recited ancient poems, and played soft melodies on worn instruments. The collective voices of the group blended with the natural whispers carried by the wind. And in those rare hours, it seemed that the gap between past and present had been bridged. The windmill, standing silently above them, appeared to listen, its creaking gears resonating with a wisdom born of centuries. Through endless nights of conversation and study, the group unearthed more about the enigmatic people who had built Greymore and the windmill. Their research led them to an old manuscript discovered in the depths of a collapsed cellar beneath the town hall. The fragile pages told the story of the Marconians, a vibrant civilization of poets, warriors, lovers, and dreamers. At the heart of their culture was the belief that memory was sacred, and that every soul's story was a note in the symphony of time. The manuscript described grand celebrations held beneath the windmill's shadow, where music, dance, and storytelling were interwoven into a single act of communion with the past. One passage recounted the words of Valerius Marcon, the master sculptor and visionary who had originally commissioned the windmill. "Let the winds carry forth our triumphs and our tribulations, for in every gust there whispers the eternal refrain. Memories are the threads that bind us to eternity, and even when lost, they shall be found in the song of the wind." These words resonated with everyone in the circle, reaffirming their belief that the windmill was a living chronicle, a keeper of stories too precious to be forgotten. Eliana's heart swelled with a determination to honor this legacy, to ensure that the voices of the past would continue to sing through the ages. Inspired by the ancient traditions of the Marconians, the fellowship organized a grand ritual, the ritual of renewal, to awaken the full power of the windmill's whispers. They chose a night when the air was clear and the stars sparkled like scattered diamonds against a velvet sky. Under the watchful gaze of the windmill, the group gathered in a wide circle on the grassy field, each member carrying a token of personal significance: a letter, a cherished trinket, a lock of hair, and a small flame from a silver lantern. At the stroke of midnight, as the windmill began its subtle creaks and groans in rhythm with the night, they recited a litany of old Marconian verses and personal prayers. The words carried forth on the breeze, mingled with the natural melody of the wind, filling the air with an almost tangible sense of anticipation. In that hallowed moment, the group felt the boundary between past and present blur, as if the memory of every lost dream and every unsung love was being woven anew into the fabric of their souls. As the ritual reached its climax, the wind picked up, swirling the tokens around the circle and sending ripples through the gathered crowd. In the crescendo of whispers, it felt as though the windmill itself had become imbued with the collective heartbeat of Greymore, an eternal reminder that even in the silent echoes of what was lost, there lies the promise of renewal and hope. In the days and weeks following the ritual of renewal, a subtle transformation gripped Greymore. The windmill, once known solely for its eerie whispers, now radiated a sense of calm purpose. Villagers reported that when they strolled past it at dawn or dusk, they felt a gentle breeze carrying not a cold chill, but a soothing warmth, a caress that reminded them of old friendships rekindled and long-forgotten dreams illuminated by a new light. Local artists found themselves mysteriously inspired. Painters, poets, and musicians gathered by the river and in the market square. Their creativity ignited by the newfound understanding that the whispers of the past could mend the wounds of the present. Murals began to appear on the walls of ancient cottages, depicting ethereal figures dancing amid swirling mists, and the windmill's silhouette was immortalized in a series of sculptures that captured its timeless grace. Eliana, now recognized as the voice of the windmill's legacy, traveled to neighboring villages to share her research and the teachings of the ancient Marconians. Through workshops and intimate gatherings, she encouraged others to listen to the whispering winds of their own hearts, to recall the memories that define them, and to transform sorrow into art. Her efforts sparked a cultural renaissance in the region, uniting disparate communities in the understanding that every whispered secret, every soft murmur born on the wind, was a reminder of the beauty inherent in our shared human experience. As seasons turned and the years passed, Greymore became synonymous with renewal, a place where the legacy of the past was cherished and the spirit of hope was nurtured like a precious, flickering flame. The windmill continued to stand as a silent sentinel over the village, its every creak and soft whistle a note in the eternal song of time. It was as if the very wind carried the voices of those who had come before, echoing their laughter, sorrow, triumphs, and regrets into the present. During a particularly memorable autumn, on the eve of a significant harvest festival, the villagers gathered in an expansive circle around the windmill. The air was heavy with the scent of ripened fruit and the soft, rustling sound of fallen leaves. At that moment, the wind swirled more energetically than usual, and the whispers from the field rose in a crescendo of bittersweet harmonies. As if choreographed by an unseen maestro, the windmill's creaks merged seamlessly with the natural music of the earth, creating a symphony that transcended time itself. In that magical hour, as the first stars began to prick the deepening blue, every heart in Greymore swelled with the unspoken understanding that they were part of an unbroken chain, a continuum of memory, hope, and the power of shared dreams. Poets recited verses that celebrated the ephemeral dance of life and remembrance, and painters captured the interplay of light and shadow that defined the fading twilight. The festival, which came to be known as the Evening of Whispered Memories, reinforced the belief that even the softest murmurs of the past could light the way to a more luminous future. In the twilight of her long and fruitful life, Eliana stood before the windmill one last time, her weathered hands gripping a well-worn journal filled with years of collected whispers, stories, and dreams. The windmill, having borne witness to countless seasons of joy and sorrow, now shone with a quiet dignity, a monument to the timeless interplay between memory and renewal. As the setting sun bathed the valley in hues of amber and gold, the soft murmur of the wind seemed to pause, carrying with it a promise of continuity. Eliana reflected on the journey that had begun with a curious whisper at the water's edge, through the labyrinth of forgotten tales in the unending cycle of hope and despair. She recalled the faces of those who had gathered, the songs they had sung together, and the legacy they had forged. A legacy that ensured that every whisper of the past would resonate through the corridors of time, inspiring each new generation to embrace both their joys and sorrows. Her final entry in the journal read, "In the subtle murmur of the wind, I have found a truth transcending the ephemeral nature of our lives. Every memory, every whispered secret, every lost dream carries the seed of renewal. Though the trail of time may fade into shadows, the echo of our hearts will always resound in the gentle whisper of the wind. Let this legacy be our eternal song, a song of remembrance, of love, and of hope that never dies." Long after the last page of Eliana's journal was read aloud in the quiet halls of Greymoor's library, the memory of the Field of Whispers and the haunting windmill continued to inspire the hearts of those who roamed the valley. The windmill stood as a timeless monument, a living echo of the past that whispered its secrets every evening as the day surrendered to night. Visitors from far and wide, drawn by legends and the promise of a glimpse into forgotten dreams, made pilgrimages to this enchanted place, each seeking to capture a fragment of its eternal melody. The legacy of the trail, of every whispered secret, every echo of the past carried on the wind, became interwoven with the soul of Greymoor. In quiet moments of contemplation, whether beneath an ancient oak or by a softly babbling brook, one could still hear the windmill's gentle creak, a reminder that in every whisper of the past lies the power to transform the present, and that the eternal song of memory endures long after the voice is faded. Thus, the story of the trail that leads only to shadows, the whispers of forgotten dreams, and the windmill that speaks in the language of time lives on. A sprawling epic of introspection, healing, and the inexhaustible capacity of the human spirit to cherish and transform even the most delicate echoes of the past into a symphony of hope for the future. In the small village of Eversong, nestled at the edge of a vast forest and crisscrossed by the meandering Silver Mist River, the legend of the riverbank had been passed down for generations. Villagers spoke of the bank's uncanny property. At dusk, when the sun dipped low and the sky blushed with the hues of farewell, the flowing waters would catch the echoes of forgotten songs. It was said that long ago, when the village was a flourishing center of trade and art, bards and musicians would gather at the river's edge, their instruments resonating in harmony with the natural world. Over time, as memories blurred and dreams were set adrift, those ancient songs became whispers carried by the wind. Young Nora, an aspiring musician with an inextinguishable curiosity and a yearning to unearth lost beauty, was entranced by these stories. Since childhood, she had spent countless afternoons by the Silver Mist, listening to the gentle ripple of the water and imagining that somewhere within its ceaseless flow lay the remnants of forgotten ballads. Her grandmother used to say, "The river remembers, child. It sings for those who listen with their heart." Nora's life would soon become a quest to explore these legends and reclaim the music of the past. One crisp autumn evening, when the leaves fell like soft embers from ancient trees and the sky wore a rich tapestry of crimson and gold, Nora ventured to the riverbank with her old beloved violin tucked under her arm. As twilight merged with the approaching night, the world around her seemed to hush in reverence. Sitting on a smooth, time-worn stone, she closed her eyes and listened. At first, there was only the gentle lapping of water and the rustle of wind through the reeds. Then gradually a faint melody arose, so soft it could have been the sigh of the river itself, a sound that felt both melancholy and wondrous. It was as if unseen voices had taken up the strings of the wind, weaving a lullaby of sorrow and forgotten hope. Awed and overcome with emotion, Nora began to play along. Her violin's notes danced tentatively with the ambient tune, and as they mingled in the air, a profound calm washed over her. In that instant, she understood that the riverbank was not merely a place of natural beauty, but a repository of memories, where the songs of generations past lived on. She vowed then that she would capture these echoes, preserve them, and let them guide her in discovering the hidden histories of her village. In the weeks following that transcendent night, Nora's search for the truth behind the river's forgotten songs deepened into an obsession. She spent her days in the Eversong Village Archive, a small room filled with yellowed manuscripts, brittle scrolls, and faded portraits of long-gone ancestors. There she discovered references to an era when the villagers celebrated music as the very essence of life. Dusty records describe festivals where bards competed in lyrical contests on the riverbank under a moonlit sky, their voices carrying the collective joys and sorrows of the community. One brittle, handwritten note mentioned a melody of the ages that was believed to be lost when the river's course shifted centuries ago. Encouraged by these leads, Nora began to piece together the fragments of the past. She interviewed the oldest residents of Eversong, whose eyes shone with nostalgic recollections. They spoke of a time when the river echoed with the songs of beloved minstrels, when every note was a story of love, triumph, and tragedy. These stories, rich with personal loss and communal celebration, wove a tapestry of emotion that transcended time. Nora's own heart swelled with both grief and hope at the thought of retrieving those sacred memories and reviving the lost lore of her people. One particularly serene night, when the veil of twilight was at its deepest and the air shimmered with ethereal calm, Nora returned to the riverbank determined to record the elusive melody. Under the gentle glow of a crescent moon, armed with her violin, a portable recorder, and a deep sense of anticipation, she settled beside the water. As the minutes ticked by, the familiar lull of the river gave way to a crescendo of whispered tunes. In the subtle interplay of natural sounds and ghostly harmonies, Nora captured a symphony of forgotten emotions. The soft notes of lost love, the bittersweet strains of unmet dreams, and the silent ode to a collective past that had been reclaimed by the passage of time. As she played, the music seemed to shift with her own feelings. At times the melody danced with joyful brightness, while at other moments it sank into a profound sorrow that mirrored the ancient grief of the land. Nora's heart wavered between rapture and despair, but in that delicate balance, she felt an inexplicable unity with the generations that had come before. Her recorder captured the raw, unadulterated sound of the night, a living archive of the riverbank's whispered songs. Upon returning to the village, Nora shared her recordings with her mentor, an elderly musician named Maestro Salvatore, whose life had been steeped in both the art and the mystery of music. Salvatore, eyes glistening with reminiscence and respect, listened intently as the haunting notes filled his modest study. After a long, reflective silence, he revealed a long-forgotten manuscript passed down through his family, a lyrical compendium believed to have been penned by one of the greatest minstrels of Eversong's golden age. The manuscript, written in flowing, elegant script and adorned with musical notations, described the Song of the River, a legendary melody said to hold the power to heal broken hearts and unite lost souls. Salvatore explained that the manuscript had been separated into fragments over the years, its verses scattered like petals in the wind. The echoes captured on Nora's recorder bore a striking resemblance to some of the long-lost lines. With these revelations, they surmised that the river itself had somehow preserved the melody, a living memory of the town's ancient spirit. Together, they embarked on a quest to reconstruct the complete song, piecing together clues from the manuscript, local legends, and the captured recordings. Their collaboration blossomed into nightly sessions of shared creativity and introspection, as they sought not only to revive a forgotten tune, but also to understand its deeper, transformative significance. News of the rediscovered melody spread slowly among the villagers, sparking a renewed interest in the old traditions of Eversong. Recognizing the power of communal memory, Nora, Maestro Salvatore, and a group of inspired townsfolk decided to organize the Ritual of Remembrance, a celebration to honor the legacy of the river's forgotten songs. On the eve of the summer solstice, when the long daylight yielded to a mystic twilight, the community gathered at the riverbank. Under a sky blushed with the colors of departure and promise, lanterns were hung from ancient trees, and the air was filled with the soft murmur of prayers and whispered wishes. Families, young lovers, and those burdened by loss took their places in a circle around a makeshift stage, where instruments both old and new awaited their moment. At the stroke of midnight, the ritual began. With delicate gestures, each participant recited verses from the recovered manuscript, and Maestro Salvatore strummed his lute in perfect harmony. Nora, standing at the center with her violin, began to play the reconstructed melody, the Song of the River, a tune that seemed to draw from the very depths of the past. As the notes unfurled into the night, something remarkable occurred. The river, as if awakened by the chorus of human voices and the tender strains of music, shimmered with an otherworldly light. The gentle murmur of the current joined the harmonious refrains, and the entire scene took on a transcendent beauty, a living symphony of remembrance that bound the community together in shared hope and healing. For that enchanted moment, every heart in Eversong beat in unison with the timeless music of the river, and every forgotten dream was given new life in the gentle embrace of sound and memory. In the months that followed the ritual of remembrance, the effects of the revived melody rippled throughout Eversong. The riverbank, once a solitary place of whispered secrets, became a gathering ground for dreamers, artists, and those in search of solace. New festivals were organized, and the community embraced its past with a fervor that bridged the gap between bygone eras and the present. Paintings were created that depicted the luminous interplay of water, light, and shadow. Sculptures captured the ephemeral nature of sound, and poets penned verses that celebrated the eternal dance of remembrance. Nora's recordings of the river's song became treasured relics, broadcast over local radio, and shared at community events. People discovered that the melody carried with it a subtle, transformative power, a reminder that while our memories may fade with the passing of time, the beauty of our collective experiences endures. The song was more than music. It was a vessel of healing, capable of mending hearts fractured by the relentless march of time. It whispered of hope and offered a bridge between generations, a reminder that even in the quiet sorrow of loss, there is a beauty to be found. Inspired by the resurgence of ancient music, Nora and Maestro Salvatore began to delve deeper into the scholarly studies of Eversong's history. With the help of Professor Edmund Calloway, an expert in local lore and musical antiquities, they embarked on a rigorous research project. Archival documents, old family recordings, and even folklore from neighboring villages were unearthed and studied in painstaking detail. Together, they theorized that the river's echoes were not accidental. They were the manifestation of a long-held belief among the earliest inhabitants that the river was a living record of every joy and sorrow experienced along its banks. Their research culminated in the publication of a comprehensive volume titled Melodies of Memory, the Living Song of Eversong, which meticulously documented the history of the forgotten songs, the evolution of the ancient melody, and its profound impact on the village's cultural identity. The book was celebrated not only as a groundbreaking work in musical antiquity, but also as a moving tribute to the enduring power of collective memory. It inspired other communities to explore their own ties to tradition and to cherish the ephemeral beauty of their shared histories. For many individuals, the rediscovered melody proved to be a catalyst for personal transformation. Among those whose lives were deeply touched was a woman named Lydia Hart, who had long suffered from the weight of unresolved grief following the loss of her husband. When Lydia first heard the Song of the River during one of the community gatherings, something within her stirred, a long dormant hope that perhaps her own story of sorrow could be rewritten. Over subsequent nights, Lydia embraced the melody, letting its gentle cadence wash over her heart. In the shimmering reflection of the river, she found the strength to confront her past and to begin the slow, painful process of healing. Soon her quiet tears turned to smiles, and she emerged as an emblem of resilience, a living testament to the transformative power of embracing one's memories, both bright and dark. Lydia's journey resonated with others, and soon more villagers began to share their experiences of personal healing inspired by the song. The riverbank became a communal sanctuary, a place where the act of listening to the whispered echoes of the past was not an admission of defeat, but a declaration of hope. In the collective warmth of shared vulnerability, the people of Eversong discovered that the bridges between what was lost and what could be reborn are built with every note, every memory, and every quiet act of remembrance. Years later, as the vibrant spirit of Eversong continued to flourish, the legacy of the riverbank and its forgotten songs became a cornerstone of the community's identity. The annual Festival of Remembrance had grown into a grand celebration of life, bridging the gap between past and future through art, music, and shared reflection. The riverbank itself was preserved as a sacred landmark, a place where every evening at dusk, when the whispers grew louder and the light softened into a golden haze, individuals from all walks of life gathered to remember, to dream, and to connect with something greater than themselves. Nora's recordings, the scholarly works of Professor Calloway and Maestro Salvatore, and the heartfelt accounts of those transformed by the song all converged to form a tapestry of cultural heritage that was as intricate as it was enduring. Over time, the melodies of memory not only echoed along the river's edge, but also became a source of inspiration for future generations. Poets, musicians, scholars, and dreamers who saw in the whispered songs the promise that even the faded notes of the past can spark a new dawn. In the quiet twilight of a setting sun, as the river flowed on with its timeless murmur, the people of Eversong would pause and listen, a silent communion with the echoes of forgotten songs that spoke of love, loss, hope, and the eternal dance of memory. Long after the initial spark of rediscovery had illuminated the hearts of those in Eversong, the legend of the riverbank where whispers grow louder at dusk endured like a timeless lullaby. Visitors from distant lands now journey to witness the spectral beauty of the river, to stand upon its banks and listen, and to feel the gentle pulse of history mingled with dreams yet to be realized. In every ripple, in every sigh of the wind through the tall grasses, the forgotten songs of the past resound, a soft, melancholy chorus that promises renewal, connection, and the unyielding power of memory. Thus, the story of the riverbank that echoes forgotten songs lives on, a sprawling epic of personal transformation, communal healing, and the delicate interplay of light, sound, and memory. It stands as a tribute to the idea that even the quietest whispers of the past hold the power to inspire us, to guide us through the corridors of time, and to remind us that in every note there lies the eternal promise of a new beginning. Long before Grayspire became a quiet, isolated village, nestled amidst towering evergreens and rocky cliffs, its lands had once teemed with life, commerce, and turbulent intrigue. According to time-worn oral histories passed down by firelight, The bell was originally cast during an age of turmoil and uncertainty by a master bell founder named Calum Duran. Legend has it that Calum, a man of keen perception and deep sorrow, forged the bell with metal from a fallen meteor and infused it with incantations gleaned from ancient, forbidden texts. His artistry was beyond mortal measure, and thus the bell came to possess an eerie aura, a capacity to sense and portend misfortune long before it descended upon the lands. The earliest accounts describe the bell tolling under a blood-red sunset, as if the heavens themselves wept for the sorrows it foretold. Over the centuries, as kingdoms crumbled and the tides of fortune shifted with the whims of fate, the bell's reputation grew. It became known by many names: a herald of doom, a bell of unquiet souls, and ultimately the bell of destiny's echo. To the local folk, the bell served as a cosmic reminder that while joy could be fleeting, misfortune was an ever-present specter lurking at the edges of time. Gray Spire, a modest settlement clinging to the foot of rugged, mist-covered mountains, had long learned to live with the bell's eerie toll. The villagers, a hardy and superstitious folk, built their lives around its ominous chime. In Gray Spire's central square, the ancient bell tower stood as a silent sentinel, a reminder of the precarious balance between fortune and misfortune. Stories abounded of families spared disaster by heedful avoidance of ill-omened days, of lovers reunited amid sudden turns of fate spurred on by the bell's warning, and of farmers who managed to harvest their fields just before a devastating storm struck. Among the residents was a young man named Everett Sinclair, whose family had been both blessed and cursed by the bell's toll. Everett's mother, a gentle soul renowned for her kindness, always warned him, "When the bell tolls, listen well. It speaks in a language of fate that can guide you, but also warns you of the shadows to come." Growing up under the somber melody of the bell, Everett harbored both fear and fascination. He felt that the bell was not merely a harbinger of sorrow, but also an oracle, a mystical guide that, if he could understand its language, might enable him to change the course of impending misfortune. Thus began his lifelong quest to decipher the cryptic tolls and master the art of forewarning, driven by a desire to protect those he loved and to reshape destiny itself. One storm-laden autumn evening, as dark clouds loomed heavy over Gray Spire and the wind carried a forlorn dirge, the bell began to toll, its sound deep, resonant, and laden with a sense of impending doom. Everett, who was then a young apprentice to the village clockmaker, listened from his workshop as the mournful chimes rolled across the valley like distant thunder. That night, the bell's toll was unlike any he had ever heard. It was as if each peal carried with it fragments of a prophecy. In the frigid air, the villagers spoke of ominous signs: livestock falling ill, crops withering prematurely, and a mysterious figure seen wandering the outskirts of the settlement. Everett, troubled by these ill omens, set out immediately to investigate. With a lantern in hand and his heart pounding like the bell's solemn drum, he traced the sound of the toll to various corners of the town. Along the winding paths and shadowed alleys, he found evidence of misfortune: a broken gate symbolizing fractured unity, a wilted bouquet left as an offering at an abandoned shrine, and cryptic symbols etched into ancient stones that he soon recognized from his studies of old prophecies. Everett's investigation culminated in a heart-stopping revelation when he discovered that the toll had coincided with the disappearance of a local child, a tragedy so profound it rattled the town's very soul. Though the connection was unclear, the event confirmed what the legends had long foretold. The bell always rang before misfortune struck. Determined to understand the true nature of the bell's ominous power, Everett sought the wisdom of two venerable figures in Gray Spire: Professor Alistair Mortimer, a reclusive scholar whose extensive knowledge of ancient myth and symbolic lore was unrivaled, and Madame Celeste Duval, a seer whose visions of fate had guided many a desperate soul. In the quiet sanctuary of the town's dusty library, Professor Mortimer pored over time-worn manuscripts, deciphering archaic scripts that hinted at a primordial connection between the bell's chimes and the world's inherent cycle of creation and destruction. In parallel, Madame Duval welcomed Everett into her modest, candlelit studio, where the heavy scent of incense and the soft rustle of ancient tarot cards filled the space. With eyes that seemed to see beyond the veil of time, Celeste shared with him a vision, an overwhelming tapestry of images, flickering scenes of catastrophic storms, sudden separations of loved ones, and the anguished cry of nature herself as if mourning the loss of life. "The bell," she intoned in a voice both fragile and resolute, "is not merely a harbinger of ill fortune, it is a sentinel that marks the turning of fate's wheel. Every toll heralds both an ending and a beginning, a call to heed the balance of life." Her words, imbued with an almost sacred urgency, spurred Everett to dedicate his every waking hour to deciphering the intricate symbolism of the tolls. Together, the scholar and the seer collaborated, delving into ancient myths, comparing visions with historical events, and mapping out a pattern in the bell's unpredictable tolling. Their combined efforts painted a picture of inevitability. The bell was not random, but a preordained signal, a ritualistic marker that occurred when the natural world was about to undergo a significant upheaval. In the depths of the ancient library, amidst stacks of forgotten lore and brittle scrolls, Everett and Professor Mortimer unearthed a peculiar manuscript. The text, known simply as the Book of Prophecies, dated back centuries and contained a series of cryptic aphorisms, each paired with descriptions of disasters that had befallen the region over time. One passage read, "When the bell's sorrowful tone doth sound, the harvest of tears shall soon abound. A shadow will pass, and grief will unfurl, marking the doom of both heart and world." This poetic verse both chilled and fascinated Everett. The manuscript detailed events that seemed too precise to be mere coincidence. Natural disasters, epidemics, and personal tragedies whose timing echoed the bell's toll. The more he studied the manuscript, the more Everett began to perceive the bell not as a curse, but as a tragic reminder of the fragile balance between fortune and sorrow, between joy and inevitable decay. Inspired by his findings, Everett began to document every toll, every corresponding event, and every minor or great misfortune that struck Grayspire. His meticulous records, combined with the observations of Madame Duval, gradually formed a chilling correlation. When the bell tolled, misfortune was never far behind. Yet hidden within the despair was a subtle hint, a glimmer of hope that if one understood these ominous signals, one might be able to deflect them, or at least prepare for their occurrence. As winter crept over Grayspire with biting winds and frosted streets, the bell's tolling became more frequent and ominous. One particularly frigid night, after the bell had sung its mournful dirge for what seemed like the 100th time in a single night, a series of disasters struck. A raging blizzard descended unexpectedly, trapping families in their homes. A fragile bridge on the outskirts of the village collapsed under the sudden weight of ice and snow, and a mysterious illness claimed the lives of several vulnerable townsfolk. In the aftermath, grief and fear coiled through the streets like a living thing, and the villagers, terrified and bewildered, rallied in the hope of understanding and averting further calamity. Everett's records, now considered vital, were read aloud in community meetings. With the guidance of Professor Mortimer and the prophetic insights of Madame Duval, he urged the people to heed the bell's somber warning. "The bell tolls not to condemn us," he would say, his voice both earnest and resolute, "but to remind us that fate has its rhythms. We must listen, learn, and prepare. In our unity, there is strength to weather any storm." A sense of cautious determination began to spread through Grayspire. Under the banner of collective resilience, Neighbors began sharing resources, fortifying their homes, and preparing for future misfortune. It was as if the very act of facing the bell's prophecy together imbued them with a reluctant hope, a belief that understanding the future might empower them to shape it. In the wake of the calamities, Everett, Madame Duval, and a dedicated team of volunteers initiated a series of initiatives aimed at protecting the community. They organized emergency workshops where practical survival skills were taught alongside sessions on meditation and stoic reflection. People learned to interpret small changes in nature, a falling leaf, an unusual shift in the wind, as potential portents of the bell's next toll. The villagers, once paralyzed by fear, found solace in the shared sense of purpose that emerged from their collective efforts. Amid these turbulent times, Everett experienced a profound personal trial. Late one stormy night, when the winds outside howled like the tormented souls of a forgotten past, he found himself alone at the ancient bell tower. With only the bitter whisper of the storm for company, he confronted the source of his own fears, the relentless, echoing toll of the bell. In that solitary moment of crisis, amidst the tempest's wrath, Everett realized that the power to endure lay not in escaping fate, but in embracing it with courage. Surrounded by the elements, with rain pelting his face and the cacophony of the storm deafening his thoughts, he pledged to dedicate his life to the service of his people, to continue chronicling the bell's prophetic tolls, and to champion the resilience of the human spirit, no matter how dire the omen. With the town banding together in the face of perpetual misfortune, a new chapter began to unfold in Gracespire. Everett's compendium of toll records and historical calamities grew into an invaluable guide, a book of community resilience that synthesized ancient prophecies with modern preparedness. Families gathered in the town hall, poring over charts that correlated the bell's toll with various natural and human-induced events, seeking patterns that might enable them to foresee impending disasters. Under the careful tutelage of Professor Mortimer, the villagers learned that while the future was indeed uncertain, knowledge was a powerful tool. They held workshops on predictive analytics and even conducted small experiments with weather instruments, while Madame Duval offered her intuitive guidance. The collaborative spirit infused new hope into Gracespire, with each citizen believing that even if misfortune was foretold, it could be met with preparedness and grace. Everett's work, entitled Echoes of Doom and Hope, became more than a record. It was a chronicle of survival, interwoven with the poetry of life and the stubborn resilience of a community that refused to be defined by despair. The book was shared far and wide, its pages a testament to the strength born of unity in the face of inevitable adversity. In time, as the seasons turned and the disasters of that dark winter began to recede into memory, the people of Gracespire discovered something remarkable. The bell, though it continued to toll in ominous tones, began to carry with it not solely a warning of despair, but also the subtle promise of renewal. New growth emerged in the charred landscapes of past disasters. The once tragic events forged a bond that united the community, inspiring innovative approaches to safeguard their homes and hearts. Families rebuilt, schools adapted, and the town, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. Everett, now recognized as the voice of Gracespire's resilience, continued his work with a tempered hope. The tolling of the bell was a reminder of the fragility of life, but also an affirmation of their collective ability to face the future. In his later writings, he spoke of the bell as both a curse and a blessing, a dual-edged instrument that, while ominously foretelling misfortune, also spurred the community to act, to come together, and to forge a future in which preparedness and compassion reigned. Art and literature flourished in Gracespire during these years. Local poets composed verses about the beauty of enduring hope in the face of inevitable loss. Painters captured the dramatic interplay of shadow and light as seen in the twilight hours when the bell tolled. Musicians wrote symphonic pieces that echoed the deep rhythms of the village's heartbeat. The town, once defined solely by its sorrows, became a beacon of communal strength and innovation, proving that even when fate seems to speak only of doom, there is always room for hope and renewal. Decades later, the legend of the bell that tolls before misfortune strikes had become inseparable from Greyspire's identity. The ancient bell tower stood as a solemn monument at the town's heart, a relic that, through its eerie prophecies, had woven generations together in the struggle to understand and overcome the caprices of fate. Everett, now an elder with a quiet wisdom etched into every line of his face, often sat by the tower on calm, reflective evenings, listening to the distant, resonant tolls that carried the echoes of both past calamities and the unyielding hope that had sustained the community. In one final act of reflection, he penned a meditation titled The Song of Fate and Renewal, in which he mused, "We are bound by the twin threads of destiny and courage. In every toll a warning, in every shadow the echo of hope, for though misfortune may knock upon our door, it is the strength of our hearts that determines what will be built anew." As he shared his final thoughts with the gathered townsfolk at a memorial service for those lost in past tragedies, a profound hush fell over the assembly. In that moment, the bell tolled one last time, a deep, sonorous chime that seemed to signify not an end, but a perpetual cycle of remembrance, unity, and rebirth. The people of Greyspire, united by their shared journey, vowed to honor the lessons of the past while embracing an uncertain but brighter future. Long after Everett's final words had faded from the world, the legacy of Greyspire and its fateful bell endured. The bell tower, a steadfast guardian against the passage of time, continued to call out its solemn warnings, guiding subsequent generations as both a reminder and an inspiration. The pages of echoes of doom and hope remained in circulation, a cherished relic of a time when fate spoke in solemn tones, and a community rose to meet it with unwavering resolve. In quiet moments, when the wind carries the soft murmur of memories, even children and newcomers to Greyspire swear they can feel the intangible pulse of the bell, a heartbeat of destiny that unites all who call this resilient town home. For in every toll, there lingers a spark of human perseverance, an eternal promise that though misfortune may come, the indomitable spirit of hope and community will always prevail. Thus, the story of the bell that tolls before misfortune strikes stands as an epic narrative, a testament to the intertwined nature of fate and human fortitude, sorrow and renewal, and the unbreakable bond that unites a community in its darkest hours, guiding them ever onward toward a future filled with hope, resilience, and the promise of new beginnings. In the earliest days of the land, long before the rise of the modern villages, the field was believed to be a sacred meeting place between the mortal realm and the spirit world. According to ancient lore passed down through oral tradition, it was once the battleground where ancient tribes gathered to celebrate the cycles of life and death. They believed that as day surrendered to night, the veil between worlds thinned, allowing the voices of ancestors and those who had not yet been born to speak through the rustling grasses. Over centuries, as neighboring settlements rose and fell, the field remained a constant, a quiet, living repository of the land's history. Weathered stone markers, half swallowed by the overgrowth, hinted at ceremonies that celebrated both victory and sorrow. Rituals were performed at dusk, where elders would recite long-forgotten chants, urging the whispers of the past to rise into the present. Even as time blurred the boundaries of myth and memory, the field maintained its reputation as a mystical locale, a place where the ordinary and the supernatural merged in the gentle hum of the wind. In the nearby hamlet of Greenthorn, where cobblestone streets wound between ivy-draped cottages and the local tavern buzzed with life during the long, languid days of summer, lived a young girl named Aurora Reed. Aurora had always been drawn to the countryside's mysteries, spending her afternoons wandering through the meadows and listening to the wind play among the ancient trees. One fateful evening, as the sun began its slow descent behind the hills, Aurora ventured out to the fabled field on the outskirts of Greenthorn. It was then, as the crimson hues of sunset melted into soft lavender, that she first heard the whispers. At first, they were no louder than the distant murmur of a brook. But as the light dimmed and shadows lengthened, the murmurs deepened into a plaintive chorus. Standing amid swaying grasses that glimmered with dew, Aurora felt the uncanny sensation that the field was speaking directly to her. Each soft syllable carrying fragments of stories and secrets from distant eras. Startled yet transfixed, she pressed her ear to the earth, listening intently to the voices that grew steadily louder with the encroaching night. The experience filled her with a mixture of wonder and trepidation, and that night she scribbled frantically in her worn leather notebook, determined to capture the elusive language of the whispers. Little did she know that her discovery would set her on a path to unravel the ancient magic of the field, a magic that had slumbered beneath the surface for untold generations. In the ensuing days, Aurora sought the wisdom of Greenthorn's oldest residents. Beneath the gnarled boughs of a centuries-old oak in the village square, she listened as old Merrick recounted the legends of the Field of Fading Whispers. According to Merrick, the field was not a mere trick of the wind, but a living archive of all that was forgotten. When the light wanes, he said in a gravelly voice softened by time, the field awakens, gathering the sighs of those who have passed and the dreams of those yet to come. His eyes twinkled with a secret knowledge as he explained that the whispers were the voices of ancestors recounting their lost hopes and a warning to the living not to let the present slip into oblivion. Inspired by his words, Aurora delved into the village archives, unearthing faded manuscripts and brittle diaries that mentioned the field in cryptic, poetic language. Verses spoke of the chorus of memory in the twilight, voices carried on the summer breeze, and a symphony that rises with the setting sun. Each fragment, though scattered and incomplete, hinted at a profound connection between the field and the very essence of life, a link between what was lost and what could be reclaimed through the art of remembrance. Aurora's fervor eventually drew the attention of two remarkable individuals from Greenthorn, Dr. Emery Larkin, a scientist with a passion for unexplained natural phenomena, and Selena Hart, an introspective poet whose verses often sought the intangible and the eternal. The unlikely pair, united by curiosity, joined forces with Aurora to study the field. They constructed delicate instruments to record the sound frequencies of the whispers, while Celine transcribed her impressions and emotions into flowing, melancholic stanzas. Dr. Larkin explained that the field's unique acoustics might be a result of natural phenomena, perhaps wind interacting with buried geological structures or ancient stone formations. However, the recordings captured were unlike any natural sound known to modern science. The frequencies seemed to evoke an emotional resonance, as if the very air were imbued with the accumulated sorrow and hope of ages. Celine's poetry, in turn, interpreted the sounds as the lamentations of forgotten souls and the soft, persistent echo of human longing. Together, the trio hypothesized that the field served as a conduit between the past and the present, a subtle yet powerful reminder that even as the world moves on, there remain remnants of history, lost dreams, and cherished memories waiting to be heard if one listens deeply at dusk. Convinced that the field's power could be harnessed for healing, Aurora, Dr. Larkin, and Celine organized a community ritual to celebrate the power of memory and unity. On the eve of the autumnal equinox, when the balance between light and dark was said to be at its most potent, villagers gathered on the field. Lanterns were hung from trees, and soft music filled the air as families and friends came together, ready to offer their own whispered memories to the night. At the heart of the ritual, the participants formed a circle, each person sharing a brief, heartfelt story or a treasured memory aloud. As the final light of day dissolved into dusk, the field responded. The whispers grew louder and more coherent, merging with the voices of the crowd to create a profound chorus, a collective ode to lost and found moments. Dr. Larkin's instruments recorded a surge in ambient vibrations that seemed to corroborate the intensity of the shared human experience, while Celine recited lines of poetry that spoke of renewal and the beauty of communal remembrance. In that transcendent moment, the field became alive with the sound of countless souls, and every listener felt as though they were cradled in an embrace woven from shared sorrow and unexpected hope. The ritual, a sacred act of letting go and honoring the past, confirmed that the whispers were more than an eerie phenomenon. They were a call to live fully, to remember, and to carry forward the legacy of what had been. Over the following months, the phenomenon of the Field of Fading Whispers continued to captivate the minds of Greenthorn's residents and visitors alike. Some nights the whispers were a soft murmur, barely perceptible, while on others they surged into a powerful symphony that filled the entire valley. Researchers from distant universities came to study the enigmatic field, armed with sophisticated audio devices and sensitive thermal cameras. Yet none could fully explain the spectral quality of the voices. Aurora, now deeply involved in both scientific inquiry and poetic exploration, compiled her collected data and poetic impressions into a large leather-bound tome. Entitled Echoes in the Twilight, the manuscript combined empirical observations with evocative musings, charting the evolution of the whispers over time. The pages told of subtle shifts in tone and pitch, of certain nights when the voices seemed to articulate names and images, and of a recurring refrain, a gentle, plaintive cry that hinted at a deeply personal plea from the past. As her work gained recognition, Aurora began to receive letters from people far and wide. Letters from those who had experienced similar phenomena in remote fields, from fishermen on foggy coasts, and from wanderers in cities where forgotten alleyways kept their own secrets. Each letter, filled with a heartfelt longing to understand the ephemeral nature of memory, wove another thread into the growing tapestry of the field's legacy. In the midst of the collective exploration of the field's mysteries, individuals began to experience personal transformations. A widow, once imprisoned by sorrow, found solace in the gentle chorus of voices, learning to see her loss not as an isolated grief, but as a shared chapter of human experience. A reclusive artist discovered that the field's murmurs unlocked a wellspring of inspiration, infusing his work with a bittersweet vibrancy that turned pain into transcendent beauty. Even children who gazed into the dusk with wide, wondering eyes found themselves touched by the mystical cadence of the whispers, their innocent questions echoing softly into the twilight. One particularly poignant account was that of Marisol, a young teacher who had, after years of suppressing her own unfulfilled dreams, found herself moved to open a school of arts and storytelling. Inspired by a night spent in the field, where the voices had recited, almost as if by magic, stories of ancient heroes and heroines, Marisol dared to dream again. In turn, her students learned to embrace both the joy and the sorrow of their own experiences, transforming the field's melancholic echoes into creative sparks that lit the dark corners of their lives. For many, the field became a place of pilgrimage, a sanctuary where the act of listening to the whispers was a meditative journey into the self, where each dusk offered a chance to reconcile with the past and to find hope in the promise of tomorrow. As the mysteries of the field deepened, so too did the philosophical discourse it inspired. In the common rooms of Greenthorn's modest cafe, in the lecture halls of nearby universities, and in fireside chats held under starlit skies, scholars, poets, and dreamers debated the nature of memory and the function of loss. They asked questions such as, are the whispers the voices of actual souls? Do they represent collective memory, the sum of human experience that persists even after individual lives have passed? Or are they a natural, albeit inexplicable phenomenon? A reminder that time, like the wind, erodes all things, yet leaves behind a soft trace of what once was? These discussions led to a vibrant but respectful body of work, a blend of scientific research and lyrical contemplation that regarded the field not as a cursed anomaly, but as a mirror of the human condition. In these reflections, the inexorable transience of life was not to be mourned with despair, but celebrated for its fleeting beauty. One noted philosopher declared, in the fading light of dusk, the field sings to us the truth that every ending is but a prelude to a new beginning. Such sentiments echoed through the community, transforming the field's melancholic chorus into a hymn of both impermanence and renewal. With each passing season, as the whispers grew louder at dusk, the field of fading whispers catalyzed profound changes in those who sought its hidden wisdom. The communal rituals evolved. What began as quiet vigils became elaborate festivals, where participants danced among the tall grasses as the fading light melded with the voices of the past. Artistic installations were created inspired by the field's haunting beauty, and musicians composed symphonies that captured the delicate balance between loss and hope. Aurora's own evolution was central to the transformation of the field's legacy. Once a shy archivist driven solely by scientific curiosity, she had blossomed into a leader whose compassionate insights had united her community. Through her tireless efforts in recording, interpreting, and sharing the voices of the field, she had given birth to a movement that celebrated the inherent beauty of forgotten memories. Her tome, Echoes in the Twilight, became required reading for those embarking on the journey of self-discovery, serving as both a guide and a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The field, in its endless cycle of dusk and dawn, came to be seen as an eternal classroom. It taught that the act of listening, of opening one's heart to the whispered echoes of the past, is a sacred ritual, one that reveals both the fragility and the enduring strength of memory. In its softly resonating chorus, the field promised that no dream or love ever truly fades. They are simply transformed into new forms, waiting to be rediscovered with the gentle light of each coming dusk. In the twilight of her life, Aurora stood on a small hill overlooking the field, now a venerable symbol of hope and transformation in Greenthorn. The fading light of dusk bathed the landscape in hues of gold and auburn as the whispers rose in a gentle crescendo, echoing the voices of generations. Surrounded by friends, students, and grateful souls whose lives had been touched by her work, she spoke of the field's eternal promise. Every dusk, she said in a soft, resonant tone, is a reminder that nothing is truly lost. The memories of our joys and sorrows live on in the wind, calling to us from the field of our own making. We must listen, and in listening, we reclaim our forgotten dreams. Her words were met with quiet applause and tearful smiles, for they echoed the understanding that life, in all its ephemeral beauty, is an unending journey of discovery and renewal. The field continued to thrive as a pilgrimage site, a sanctuary where every evening the whispers grew louder, inviting new generations to step into the twilight and listen to the legacy of all that has been and all that is yet to come. Long after the passing of those who first set foot in the field of fading whispers, its legend lived on in the hearts of the people of Greenthorn and beyond. In every gentle rustle of twilight, in every soft murmur of the evening breeze, one can still hear the voices of forgotten dreams and cherished memories. The field, a timeless witness to the ephemeral nature of life, remains a sacred reminder that even as the world marches forward, the echoes of our past, our hopes, our losses, our unfulfilled aspirations continue to sing, growing louder at dusk and promising that the journey of remembrance is eternal. Thus, the story of the field where whispers grow louder at dusk endures, a sprawling epic of longing, healing, and the unyielding power of memory. It is an invitation to all who hear its melancholic song to embrace the beauty of impermanence, to cherish every whispered secret, and to recognize that every dusk carries within it the luminous possibility of a new dawn. Long ago, when the land was still young and the boundaries between the natural and the surreal were but a gossamer thread apart, settlers seeking refuge from a world of disillusionment founded the village of Somnia. They believed that the heart's dreams should never be caged by reality, and that every soul deserves a chance to see its deepest desires manifest in the world. Over time, as the village grew into a bustling town, the peculiar magic that had been invoked during its founding took root. Here in the narrow streets and luminous market squares, the line between waking life and the realm of dreams began to blur. The founders built homes with open courtyards and soaring archways designed to invite not only the bright light of the day, but also the mysterious glimmers of the fantastical. Local legends tell of how, on the first night of every new moon, if one listened carefully, the gentle rustle of leaves and the murmurs of the wind would harmonize with the dreams of the sleeping, a symphony of hope and aspiration that imbued Somnia with its unique, otherworldly charm. Somnia is a town where every resident is both an artist and a dreamer. Among its inhabitants is Leora Celeste, a young woman whose eyes gleam with quiet determination and whose heart holds a treasury of unspoken wishes. Leora, like many others in Somnia, was born into a world of possibilities. As a child, she would wander the sunlit meadows, imagining that the clouds were canvases upon which her wildest dreams were painted. Over time, Leora discovered that in Somnia, those dreams were not mere figments of her imagination. When the moon rose high on certain nights, her sketches on paper would seem to ripple to life on the walls of her modest home. Her best friend, Matteo, was a kind-hearted tinkerer with an innate fascination for mechanical contraptions and ingenious devices. Matteo believed that every dream had a spark of truth waiting to be ignited, and he spent his days devising elaborate machines powered by the collective aspirations of the townsfolk. Whether it was a clock that chimed in laughter or an automaton that danced to the rhythm of love, every invention in Somnia bore testimony to a shared conviction that dreams, when nurtured, could transform even the most ordinary existence into a living wonder. At the heart of Somnia lay the bustling marketplace, a vibrant mosaic of colors and voices where vendors sold not only fruits, textiles, and trinkets, but also the intangible commodities of hope and possibility. Stalls were bedecked with paintings that seemed to shimmer with life, and each vendor proudly declared that the creation of their wares had been inspired by a dream realized. One stall in particular belonged to old Madame Verity, who wove tapestries that captured moments of ephemeral beauty. A sunset that never faded, the gentle curve of a smiling face, the fleeting sparkle of first love. Her tapestries, imbued with an ineffable magic, were said to shift subtly with the moods of those who viewed them, echoing the hidden desires of the heart. On certain nights, when the town was bathed in the soft glow of lamplight and the skies above were embroidered with stars, the marketplace would transform into a living gallery of dreams made manifest. Here, people gathered not merely to shop, but to exchange stories of hope, to share epiphanies born in moments of vulnerability, and to affirm one another's belief in a future sculpted by the power of imagination. Every year, as autumn's golden light gave way to the crisp, cool air of approaching winter, Somnia celebrated its uniqueness with the Festival of Wondrous Nightfall. This grand celebration was held on the eve of the winter solstice, when the longest night of the year provided the perfect stage for magic to unfurl. Throughout the town, lanterns were hung from ancient oaks, and every window was adorned with shimmering, handcrafted reflections of dreams past. Musicians, poets, and dancers converged in the central square, their performances woven from the threads of longing and exuberance. During the festival, the townsfolk partook in communal rituals to honor their dreams. One such custom involved writing down a personal aspiration on a slip of parchment, which was then placed in a grand ceremonial chest. At midnight, beneath a vault of starlight, the chest was opened, releasing the collective dreams into the night air with a soft, luminescent burst, as if the very soul of Somnia were being renewed. For many, the festival was a transformative experience, a night when the boundaries between what was imagined and what was real melted away, allowing for a profound collective communion of the human spirit. Even in a town where dreams typically blossomed into dazzling reality, Somnia was not immune to the shadow of despair. It was during one fateful season, when a deep melancholy had befallen a close-knit family, that a once beautiful dream began to twist into something darker. Matteo, whose innovative contraptions had always been a source of joy, found himself haunted by nightmares of failure and loss. One night, as the winds howled outside his workshop and the streets of Somnia lay silent under an oppressive sky, he had a vision, a vast chasm splitting the town in two, where the brilliant light of dreams struggled against an encroaching void of sorrow. This vision soon seeped into everyday life, a subtle shift in the color of the tapestries, a somber note in the gentle music of the marketplace. People began to speak of a growing chill, a sense that some dreams might be slipping away, swallowed by an invisible force. Leora, deeply attuned to the emotional pulse of the town, felt a profound disturbance. Confronted with the possibility that even the most hopeful dreams could wither if not nurtured, she resolved to rally the community to confront this darkness before it engulfed Somnia entirely. In the midst of this growing uncertainty, an old legend resurfaced, a tale of the dream weaver, a mystical figure said to have once traveled throughout Somnia, sowing hope into the hearts of its people with delicate threads spun from starlight and compassion. According to lore, the Dreamweaver possessed a magical spindle that could mend even the most tattered dreams, transforming despair into a luminous promise. Determined to restore the vibrancy of their cherished town, Leora, Matteo, and a small band of fellow dreamers set out to find this enigmatic figure. Their journey led them far beyond the familiar lanes of Somnia, into deep forests where ancient trees murmured secrets of the past, over misty hills at dawn, and through forgotten valleys where the very air shimmered with residual magic. Each step of their quest was fraught with obstacles, riddles left by time, treacherous terrain, and moments when the weight of lost dreams threatened to break their resolve. Yet in their unity and unwavering belief, they found strength. Guided by fragments of old maps, cryptic verses, and whispered warnings passed down by wise elders, they pressed on toward the fabled dwelling of the Dreamweaver. After many days of arduous travel, the group arrived at a secluded, ivy-clad manor nestled on the edge of a forgotten glen. It was said that this was the residence of the Dreamweaver, a place where light and shadow wove together in delicate balance, where every room held echoes of hopes renewed. In the grand foyer, golden threads shimmered in the air, seemingly spun from the very essence of dreams. In a quiet chamber adorned with murals depicting the evolution of human hope and sorrow, they finally encountered the Dreamweaver herself, a gentle, ageless woman whose eyes shone with the wisdom of countless lifetimes. The Dreamweaver, known simply as Seraphine, welcomed the seekers with a tender smile. Her voice was like the rustle of silk and the murmur of distant waves. Over cups of herbal tea brewed with rare moonlit herbs, she listened to their accounts of the darkness that had begun to infiltrate Somnia. Seraphine explained that every dream possesses its own light, yet there are moments when the balance tips toward despair, threatening to eclipse all hope. In order to keep the flame of dreamfulness burning, she said softly, one must learn to mend the fabric of longing with threads of resilience and love. With careful deliberation, the Dreamweaver offered to help the group restore Somnia's dreamscape. She revealed that the answer lay not in banishing despair entirely, but in recognizing that even the darkest dreams hold a seed of light, waiting for a nurturing touch. She presented them with a mystical spindle, a luminescent instrument capable of weaving threads of renewed hope from the scattered remnants of broken dreams. With the spindle in hand and Seraphine's guidance, the group began to work on stitching together the torn fabrics of Somnia's collective dreams. Armed with the Dreamweaver's enchanted spindle and inspired by her timeless wisdom, the group returned to Somnia, determined to rekindle the fading light of hope. They organized a grand event, the Festival of Dream Renewal, in which every citizen was invited to share their forgotten aspirations and rebuild the fragile tapestry of their collective future. As twilight descended upon the town, banners of vibrant colors and intricate designs fluttered in the gentle breeze. Central to the festival was an enormous loom set up in the town square, its frame adorned with symbols of unity and continuity. Over the course of the evening, as music and poetry filled the air, villagers, young and old, wove together threads of shimmering light. They recounted stories of dreams that had once brightened their lives, shared intimate recollections of joy and loss, and expressed a collective desire to see their town flourish anew. The loom hummed with activity, as if breathing life into every fiber spun by hopeful hands. In that moment, Somnia transformed into a living, breathing tapestry, a testament to the belief that even the most fragmented dream can be mended with care, and that every individual, no matter how small, adds value to the grand design of life. As the Festival of Dream Renewal reached its zenith, the darkness that had once threatened to swallow the town began to recede. The collective energy of hundreds of hearts, all beating in unison with renewed purpose, gradually dispelled the chill of despair. Leora, Matteo, and the others found that the very air was alive with the sound of hope, a soft, sonorous melody that carried the promise of better days ahead. The success of the festival ushered in an era of transformation in Somnia. The town, once defined by the fleeting nature of dreams, now thrived on a culture of creativity, resilience, and shared aspiration. Public spaces blossomed with murals that celebrated both the ephemeral beauty of dreams and the eternal strength of human hope. Markets offered handcrafted trinkets imbued with the symbolism of rebirth, and local theaters presented plays that reimagined the perennial struggle between light and shadow in the language of art. Elena, a spirited storyteller whose tales had long captivated the townspeople, began to record the renewed legends of Somnia. Her stories, filled with lyrical prose and heart-stirring imagery, chronicled the journey of the people as they learned to honor their losses, celebrate their small victories, and, most importantly, never cease dreaming. In her narratives, the once elusive notion of a town where dreams came to life was replaced by a vivid reality, a living testament that the pursuit of one's deepest desires was both a personal and communal endeavor. Meanwhile, the restored dreamscape spurred local innovation in unexpected ways. Matteo, inspired by the festival, designed whimsical contraptions that harnessed the energy of collective dreams, mechanical devices that played harmonious tunes when one experienced a breakthrough, and interactive sculptures that glowed when touched by hopeful hearts. Each invention was a reminder that in Somnia, The future was not fixed, but was continuously woven by the hands of those who dared to imagine a better world. Now, decades after the transformative festival of dream renewal, Somnia had evolved into a haven where dreams were not only cherished, but actively cultivated. The town had become a living monument to the beauty and impermanence of dreams, a place where every sunrise brought with it the promise of new beginnings, and every sunset carried the memory of dreams fulfilled and those yet to be born. In quiet, reflective moments, residents would gather at the central plaza, where a magnificent sculpture, crafted from intertwined metal and glass, symbolizing the melding of past aspirations and future hopes, stood as a testament to the town's journey. Here, beneath the soft glow of lamplight and the gentle murmur of lingering dreams, elders recounted the tale of how Somnia learned to live where dreams came to life. They spoke of the struggles and triumphs, the challenges of holding on to hope amidst the inevitable march of time, and the profound realization that it is the journey, the continuous act of dreaming, that defines existence. As the town celebrated its legacy through art, literature, and community rituals, the original founding spirit of Somnia endured in every shared story and every creative spark. The people of Somnia understood that dreams might be transient, but their power to inspire, heal, and transform was eternal. Long after the first whispers of change had blossomed into a full chorus of hope, Somnia continued to shine as a beacon of light in a sometimes dim and weary world. Visitors from distant lands now traveled to this mystical town to witness firsthand the miracle of dreams taking physical form, a testament to the belief that within every heart lies the capacity for renewal and wonder. In every vibrant street and every quiet corner of Somnia, the essence of dreams was palpable, a soft glow in the eyes of its people, a gentle smile that spoke of undiscovered possibilities, and a communal embrace of life's fragile, fleeting moments. For as long as there are hearts that dare to dream, the spirit of Somnia will endure, forever a living celebration of the unending journey of hope. Thus, the story of the town where dreams come to life endures, a sprawling epic of personal transformation, communal creativity, and the eternal promise that no dream, no matter how ephemeral, is ever truly lost. In the golden light of each new day, Somnia stands as a testament to the beauty of aspiration, a reminder that every hope nurtured is a promise of tomorrow waiting to be fulfilled.